one voicemail. 17 seconds long. That is all it would have taken to save a 4-year-old girl's life. While Grant Hollis was slow dancing barefoot with his mistress in a rented penthouse overlooking the Chicago skyline, his daughter Lily was pinned beneath twisted metal on the Eisenhower Expressway, whimpering for her daddy through a mouth full of blood. Grant heard the phone ring. He saw his wife's name flash across the screen. And he did what he always did when Marlo interrupted his other life. He sent it straight to voicemail. He thought it was nothing. He thought she was calling to nag him about the broken dishwasher, or to remind him about preschool pickup on Monday. He poured another glass of Barolo and pulled Dominique Fay closer on the couch. But 5 miles south, in the wreckage of a silver Volvo that had been T-boned by a delivery truck running a red light, nothing was exactly what Lily was becoming. This is the story of how one man's selfishness murdered his own family, and how the woman he underestimated most turned his world into ash. It started the way these things always start. Not with a bang, but with a slow, quiet erosion. Grant Hollis was a commercial real estate broker at Kenway Partners, a mid-tier firm in the Loop. He was good-looking in that forgettable catalog model way, square jaw, easy smile, the kind of man who could charm a room but couldn't hold a real conversation past dessert. Marlo had married him at 25. Back when his ambition looked like drive and his restlessness looked like passion. By 30 she understood the difference. They lived in a brownstone in Lincoln Park that Marlo's mother, Astrid Jennings, had helped them buy. Astrid was not a woman who helped casually. She was the founding partner of Jennings, Wakefield & U, one of the most feared litigation firms in the Midwest. She had dismantled pharmaceutical companies. She had brought a sitting state senator to his knees in a deposition that lasted 11 hours. She did not raise her voice. She did not bluff. She simply gathered facts the way other people gathered firewood, patiently, methodically, and then she lit the match. Grant was terrified of Astrid. Everyone was. But he had convinced himself, with the special delusion that narcissists cultivate like a garden, that he was too clever to get caught. He had been seeing Dominique Fay for 7 months. She was a leasing agent at a competing firm, 12 years younger than him, with a laugh that sounded like wind chimes and a moral compass that pointed wherever the money was. On the night of March 14th, Grant told Marlo he had a client dinner downtown, an investor from Dallas. Big deal, might go late, don't wait up. Marlo didn't question it, she was exhausted. Lily had been running a low fever all week and Marlo had taken 2 days off from her job at the nonprofit to stay home with her. She kissed Grant on the cheek as he adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror. Say goodnight to Lily before you go, Marlo said. Grant glanced at the stairs. She's already asleep, babe. I'll see her in the morning. He didn't go upstairs. He walked out the door, got into his Audi, and drove to the Langham Hotel on North Wabash, where Dominique was already waiting in a suite that cost $740 a night, charged to a credit card Marlo didn't know existed. By 8:30, they were 2 bottles deep. Grant's jacket was draped over a chair. His phone sat face down on the marble bathroom counter, where he had placed it deliberately so the screen wouldn't light up and interrupt the mood. Dominique had a rule. When they were together, the outside world didn't exist. You're all mine tonight, Dominique murmured, running a finger along his jaw. No wife, no kid, just us. Grant smiled. He felt free. He felt young. He felt like the version of himself that existed before mortgages and sippy cups and a mother-in-law who looked at him like she was reading his autopsy report. At 8:47 p.m. his phone buzzed against the marble. Then again. Then a third time in rapid succession. Ignore it, Dominique said. Already ahead of you. Grant didn't even look. He reached into the bathroom, felt for the phone, and held the side button until it went dark. 7 miles away, Marlo was not calling about the dishwasher. Lily's fever had spiked to 104. She was seizing in her car seat, her tiny body rigid, eyes rolled back. Marlo had thrown her into the Volvo and was racing toward Lurie Children's Hospital, running every yellow light, one hand on the wheel, the other hitting radial over and over. Come on, Grant. Come on, come on, come on. The call went to voicemail, then straight to voicemail. Then the robotic voice. The person you are trying to reach. Marlo screamed and threw the phone onto the passenger seat. She looked in the rearview mirror. Lily was limp now, no longer seizing, which was somehow worse. Baby, stay with me. Mommy's almost there, we're so close. She never saw the FedEx truck. The driver, later found to have been awake for 19 hours on a double shift, blew through the intersection at Ogden and Congress. The impact hit the Volvo on the passenger side and spun it into a concrete median barrier. The car folded like paper. Marlo woke up hanging sideways from her seatbelt, blood pouring from a gash above her eye. The airbag tasted like chalk. She could hear sirens. She could hear someone screaming, and then she realized it was her. Lily. Lily. She clawed at the seatbelt, twisting her body to look into the back seat. The passenger side of the car was crushed inward. Lily's car seat was bent at an angle that car seats are not designed to bend. She could see Lily's hand, small and still, hanging from the harness. The firefighters had to cut the roof off to get them out. At Stroger Hospital they stabilized Marlowe. Broken collarbone, 3 cracked ribs, a concussion. But when she asked about Lily, the trauma surgeon, a woman named Dr. Anwar with steady hands and heartbroken eyes, sat on the edge of her bed. The impact was on her side of the vehicle. The force was catastrophic. We tried everything. We had the best pediatric team in the building working on her. No, Marlowe said. No, she had a fever. I was taking her to the hospital. I'm so sorry, Marlowe. Lily didn't make it. Marlowe didn't scream. She went somewhere inside herself, a place below sound, below grief, a place where the world turned into white noise, and the only thing she could feel was the phantom weight of her daughter on her hip. She picked up her phone. 13 missed calls to Grant. Not a single callback. It was 2:15 a.m. when Grant Hollis walked through the front door of the Lincoln Park brownstone, smelling like red wine and Dominique's jasmine perfume. He felt good, relaxed. He tossed his keys into the ceramic bowl on the hallway table and noticed the lights were on. All of them. He found Astrid Jennings sitting in the living room armchair. She was wearing a charcoal cashmere coat. She hadn't taken it off. She was holding a cup of tea that she hadn't touched. Her reading glasses were folded on the end table beside a stack of hospital paperwork. Astrid? Grant said, freezing in the doorway. What are you doing here? Where's Marlowe? Astrid looked at him. She didn't stand up. She didn't raise her voice. She studied him the way she studied a witness on the stand, noting every micro-expression, every involuntary flinch, every lie forming behind the eyes. Marlowe is at Stroger Hospital, Astrid said. She has been there since 9 o'clock tonight. What? Is she okay? What happened? There was a car accident. A truck hit her on the Eisenhower. Grant's face went pale. Oh my God, is Lily? Astrid set down the teacup. The porcelain clicked against the saucer with surgical precision. Lily is dead, Grant. The floor dropped out from under him. He grabbed the doorframe. No, she was fine. She had a little fever. Marlowe said. Marlowe called you, Astrid said. Her voice didn't waver, it didn't rise. It was the voice of a woman who had spent 40 years controlling rooms full of hostile witnesses. She called you 13 times while she was driving our granddaughter to the hospital. She called you while Lily was seizing. She called you while the truck was bearing down on them. She called you while they cut the roof off the car to pull Lily's body from the wreckage. Grant's legs gave out. He dropped to his knees on the hardwood floor. My phone, the battery, I was at dinner and the charger stopped. Astrid held up one hand. I am going to ask you one question, Grant. I want you to think very carefully before you answer, because the rest of your life depends on it. She stood up. She was not a tall woman, but in that moment she filled the room. Where were you tonight? I told Marlowe. A client dinner, the Dallas investor. We went to. Astrid inhaled slowly through her nose. Her nostrils flared. You smell like jasmine, she said quietly, and Sangiovese. Not the smell of a steakhouse with a client from Dallas. Grant's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Go to the hospital, Astrid said. Your wife is alone. She has a broken collarbone and no daughter. I suggest you practice your grief on the drive over. She picked up her coat, her glasses, and her car keys. She walked past him without another word. At the door, she paused. Grant, yes, I know you're lying. I don't need you to confirm it. I will find the truth the way I always do. And when I do, God himself will not be able to help you. Because he won't get to you before I do. The door closed softly behind her. The click of the latch sounded like the hammer of a gun being pulled back. Grant knelt on the floor shaking for a full 3 minutes before he could stand. He pulled out his phone, powered it on, and frantically deleted everything. The texts from Dominique, the hotel confirmation email, the photos. He cleared the call log. He opened his banking app and moved the credit card charges to a secondary account. He thought he was safe. He thought he had buried it. But Grant Hollis did not understand who Astrid Jennings was. Astrid did not need his phone. She did not need his confession. She had spent her career unraveling men who were smarter, richer, and more powerful than Grant Hollis. And she had done it with nothing more than patience and public records. The funeral was 4 days later. Grant played the part flawlessly. He wore a black suit and held Marlowe's trembling hand. He cried at the casket, a white box so small it looked like it belonged in a dollhouse. The mourners whispered their sympathies. He looks destroyed. That poor man was working so hard to provide, and now this. Grant absorbed the pity like oxygen. The story was holding. He was the devoted father who had been tragically unreachable during a freak accident. No one questioned it, no one except Astrid. She stood at the back of the cemetery, dry-eyed, watching, not watching the casket, watching Grant. She saw him check his phone during the final prayer. She saw the way his grief flickered on and off like a switch. She saw the red Audi TT parked 200 yards down the cemetery road, engine running, a woman in sunglasses sitting behind the wheel. Astrid memorized the plate number. That evening, she sat in her office at the firm, the city lights of Chicago glittering below her. Her investigator, a former FBI forensic accountant named Wendell, sat across from her. "The Audi is registered to Dominique Fay," Wendell said, 26, leasing agent at Pryor Kimball. "She's been seeing Grant for at least 7 months based on the financial trail." "Financial trail," Astrid repeated. He opened a separate credit card under a slight name variation. G. Allen Hollis, his middle name. "He's been charging hotel rooms, dinners, jewelry, about $40,000 over 7 months, all from the joint savings account he shares with Marlowe." Astrid's jaw tightened. "From Marlowe's money. There's more." I pulled the cell tower data from the night of the accident. At 8:47 p.m., when Marlowe called him for the 5th time, his phone pinged off the tower at North Wabash and East Hubbard. That's the Langham Hotel. Then at 8:48 the signal died. He powered it down manually. 1 minute, Astrid whispered. 1 minute after his wife called for help. I also reviewed the hotel's security footage. The general manager owed me from the Decatur litigation. Timestamp 8:46 p.m. Grant and a woman matching Dominique Fay's description are visible through the suite's open door accepting a room service delivery. He's in a bathrobe. Astrid closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were dry and sharp as surgical steel. What else? The Convey Partners accounts. He's been inflating commission reports on the Harbor Point development deal. Padding square footage numbers to boost his quarterly draw. It's fraud, Astrid. If the Illinois Securities Bureau gets this, he's looking at state charges. If the feds pick it up under wire fraud statutes, it's federal. Astrid leaned back. A cold, deliberate smile crossed her face, the kind of smile that had made opposing counsel physically flinch in depositions. "He's up for the managing director position next month," Astrid said. "His firm is hosting a gala at the Drake Hotel. 300 people, press coverage, live streamed to the satellite offices." "You want to wait?" Wendell asked. "I want him to climb as high as he possibly can," Astrid said. "I want him to stand on the mountaintop and taste the air. And then I want to remove the mountain." Over the next 3 weeks, Astrid operated with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a spider. She let Grant feel safe. She stopped visiting the house. She told Marlowe to let him comfort her, to let him believe his lie had worked. Marlowe, hollow-eyed and broken, asked only one question. "Is he lying about that night?" "Yes," Astrid said. "He was at a hotel with another woman while you were calling him, while Lily was dying." Marlowe didn't cry. She had no tears left, she just nodded. "What do I do?" "You wait. You let me work. And when the time comes you watch him burn." The gala arrived on a Friday evening in April. The Drake Hotel ballroom was glittering. Crystal chandeliers, a 16-piece orchestra, 300 guests in black tie. Convey Partners was celebrating its best fiscal year, and the centerpiece of the evening was the announcement of the new managing director. Grant Hollis was magnificent. He wore a custom navy tuxedo. He had rehearsed his acceptance speech in the mirror. He had even worn the tiny enamel lily pin that Marlowe had given him after their daughter was born, not out of love, but because he knew the cameras would catch it. The CEO, a man named Pritchard, took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor a man who embodies resilience. Despite a personal tragedy that would have broken most of us, Grant Hollis has continued to lead with excellence. It is my privilege to announce his promotion to managing director." Thunderous applause. Grant walked to the podium, shaking hands, smiling humbly. "Thank you," he said, his voice carefully breaking. "I wish my daughter Lily could see this. Everything I do from now on is for her." From the back of the ballroom, a sound cut through the applause. Click, click, click. Astrid Jennings walked forward, her heels striking the marble floor in a rhythm that silenced the room. She wore a black suit, no jewelry, no smile. She looked like judgment incarnate. "Astrid," Pritchard said, surprised. "We didn't expect you this evening." "I have a brief addition to the program," Astrid said. She reached the podium and didn't look at the audience. She looked directly at Grant. "You said Lily is watching. I wonder what she would see." She pulled a USB drive from her jacket pocket and plugged it into the presentation laptop. The Convey Partners logo on the massive screen behind them vanished. In its place appeared a hotel security camera image. Timestamps, 8:46 p.m., March 14th. Grant Hollis in a bathrobe, laughing, accepting a room service tray from a waiter. Behind him, a woman in lingerie crossing the suite. "This," Astrid said, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom like a blade, "is where Grant Hollis was at 8:46 on the night of March 14th. 2 minutes later my daughter called him for the 13th time. She was trapped in a car on the Eisenhower with Lily dying in the back seat." He looked at the phone. He saw her name and he turned it off. The screen changed. Phone records, a red circle around 8:48 p.m. Manual power down. He didn't miss the call, he killed it. He chose a woman in lingerie over his 4-year-old daughter choking on her own blood in a crushed car. A gasp rolled through the crowd. Pritchard looked like he was going to collapse. That is not all, Astrid continued. The screen changed again. Spreadsheets with red highlighted entries. Grant Hollis has been committing fraud. He inflated the Harbor Point Commission reports by 32%. He stole from his partner's pockets to fund hotel rooms and Cartier bracelets for his mistress. This file was delivered to the SEC and the Illinois Attorney General's office this morning. Grant was white. He gripped the podium. Astrid, you're making a mistake. We can discuss this in private. There is nothing private about you anymore, Grant. Astrid's voice dropped to a register that made the air in the room vibrate. You are not being promoted. You are being terminated, and the officers in the lobby are waiting to escort you out. Grant looked toward the exit. 2 plainclothes detectives stood by the double doors. You can't, Grant whispered. I built this department. You built a lie, Astrid said, and I just told the truth. The live stream was running. Every employee at every Kenway office across the country watched as Grant Hollis was led out of the Drake Hotel ballroom in handcuffs, screaming that it was a setup, that the footage was fake, that his mother-in-law was insane. Nobody believed him, but Astrid was not finished. She never struck once when she could strike twice. Dominique Fay watched the gala livestream from her apartment in Streeterville. The moment Grant's face appeared next to the hotel footage, she went into survival mode. She deleted her social media. She called her landlord about breaking the lease. She called a lawyer. None of it mattered. Within 48 hours, Dominique's employer received an anonymous package containing evidence that she had used her relationship with Grant to access confidential Kenway Partners lease negotiations. A clear violation of her non-compete clause, and arguably corporate espionage. It was circumstantial at best, but in the court of public opinion, she was already convicted. She was terminated on the spot. 2 weeks later, the IRS opened an inquiry into the gifts Grant had purchased for her with funds that were now classified as stolen. The Cartier bracelet, the leased Audi, the hotel rooms. Dominique wasn't just unemployed, she was a person of interest in a fraud investigation. But Astrid saved the cruelest stroke for last. She arranged for Marlowe to meet Dominique. Not in a courtroom, but in a quiet diner in Evanston. Neutral ground. Dominique arrived looking shattered. Gone was the confident leasing agent in designer heels. She wore jeans and a wrinkled sweater. She sat down across from Marlowe and immediately started her rehearsed speech. Marlowe, I didn't know about Lily. Grant told me you two were practically separated. He said the marriage was over. If I had known what was happening that night. Stop, Marlowe said. Her voice was quiet but carried an edge that could cut glass. My mother pulled the forensic data from Grant's phone. When I called the third time, at 8:47, your fingerprint was the one that powered it down. Not his. Yours. The color drained from Dominique's face. He was in the bathroom, Marlowe continued. The phone was on the nightstand. It kept ringing. You picked it up, you saw my name, and you held down the button until the screen went black because the ringing was ruining your evening. Dominique's mouth opened. No sound came out. My daughter was alive at 8:47, Marlowe said. She died at 8:53, 6 minutes. If Grant had answered, if you had let it ring, he would have told me to call 911 instead of driving. An ambulance would have gotten there faster. The paramedics could have stabilized her fever before the seizure got worse. I wouldn't have been driving blind with panic. The truck might not have hit us. Or if it had, the ambulance would have been right behind us. Marlowe stood up. You didn't just sleep with my husband, Dominique. You silenced the only phone call that could have saved my daughter's life. You killed the noise. And the noise was a 4-year-old girl named Lily, who liked butterflies and called spaghetti paschetti, and slept with a stuffed elephant named Gerald. Marlowe walked out. Dominique sat alone in the diner booth for 40 minutes, before the waitress finally asked if she wanted to order something, or just keep crying. The trial of Grant Hollis lasted 9 days. The media called it the Langham betrayal. The public devoured every detail. The bathrobe, the room service, the powered-down phone, the timestamps that lined up like a damnation calendar. Dominique testified under a limited immunity deal. She confirmed everything: the affair, the phone, the deliberate shutdown. When the prosecutor asked her what Grant said after turning off the phone, she whispered 3 words that the jury would never forget. He said, finally, silence. The courtroom went so still you could hear the court reporter's fingers trembling above her keys. The jury convicted him on all counts of fraud in under 4 hours. The sentencing hearing was standing room only. Judge Winslow, a veteran of the Cook County bench, removed her glasses and looked down at Grant. Mr. Hollis, I have presided over cases involving gang violence, drug trafficking, and organized crime, but I have rarely encountered a defendant whose selfishness was so complete, so absolute, that it functioned as its own kind of cruelty. You are not charged with your daughter's death. The law does not allow me to punish you for that, but the universe has its own accounting system, and I suspect it is less forgiving than this court. She put her glasses back on. For the financial crimes to which you have been found guilty, I sentence you to 22 years in federal custody. You will not be eligible for parole for 18 years. Full restitution is ordered. The gavel came down like a thunderclap. Grant screamed that he was innocent, that Astrid had set him up, that the evidence was fabricated. The bailiffs dragged him out while the cameras rolled, and 300,000 people watched the live stream replay on every news channel in the country. 6 months later, Marlowe drove north to Stateville Correctional Center in Joliet. She had not visited Grant since his conviction. She didn't plan to make a habit of it. The visitation room smelled like industrial cleaner and regret. Grant sat behind the plexiglass in an orange jumpsuit. He looked hollowed out, 10 years older, his catalog model jaw now covered in patchy stubble. He picked up the phone receiver with shaking hands. Marlowe, you came. I came to close the book, Grant, not to open it, please. His voice cracked. You have to get me out. Your mother, she destroyed me. She took everything. I can't survive 22 years in here. I'll die. You won't die, Marlowe said. You'll just live without anyone caring whether you do. She held up a document to the glass. The divorce was finalized yesterday. Default judgment. You didn't contest it because your public defender couldn't locate you for the signature. I have my maiden name back. I am Marlowe Jennings again. Marlowe, please. I loved Lily. You know I loved her. You loved the idea of her, Marlowe said. You loved telling people you were a father. You loved the sympathy. You loved wearing that Lily pin on your lapel at the gala while you stood on a stage built out of lies. She pulled out a photograph and held it against the glass. It was Lily's headstone, a small granite marker with a carved butterfly. Lily Rose Hollis, beloved daughter, safe where the butterflies land. I go every Sunday, Marlowe said. I bring her daisies because she thought roses were boring. I tell her stories. Last week I told her that the man who was supposed to protect her is in a place where no one will ever protect him. Don't, Grant whispered, tears running down his face. Goodbye, Grant. Marlowe placed the phone receiver back in the cradle. She stood up. She placed her palm flat against the glass, directly over his. For 1 second, he thought she was reaching for him. Then she pulled her hand away and wiped it on her coat, as though she had touched something unclean. She walked out without looking back. Grant pressed his face against the plexiglass, screaming her name into the dead receiver, watching the steel door close on the last person in the world who had ever known the man he used to be. The lock engaged with a sound that would echo in his ears for the next 22 years. The Lake Michigan shoreline was golden in the late afternoon light as Marlowe sat on a bench at Montrose Harbor. The wind carried the smell of water and cut grass. Astrid sat beside her, reading a brief on her tablet, her reading glasses perched on her nose. Are you okay? Astrid asked without looking up. Marlowe reached into her jacket and pulled out a small locket. Inside was a photo of Lily, grinning, gap-toothed, holding up a crayon drawing of a butterfly with 7 legs. She closed the locket and held it against her chest. I miss her, Mom. Every second of every day. I know, Astrid said softly. So do I. But I can breathe again. For the first time in months, I feel like I can actually breathe. Astrid put down the tablet. She took her daughter's hand. The books are balanced, sweetheart. Marlowe looked out at the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of amber and rose. A monarch butterfly, early for the season, impossibly early, landed on the back of the bench between them. It stayed for 3 full seconds, its wings opening and closing slowly, before lifting off into the warm evening air. Marlowe smiled, a real smile, the first one in months. Did you see that, Lily? She whispered. We got him, baby, you can rest now. The butterfly rose higher, caught the light, and disappeared into the golden sky over the lake. And Marlowe Jennings sat there, breathing in, breathing out, finally free. Now I have to ask you, was this justice? Some people say Grant's real punishment isn't the prison cell, it's the silence. No calls, no visitors. No one caring whether he wakes up tomorrow. Others say 22 years isn't enough for a man who traded his daughter's life for a bottle of wine and a woman who didn't even stay. What would you have done if you were in Astrid's shoes? Would you have gone the legal route, or something darker? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm genuinely curious where you stand on this. If this story moved you, or if you just believe karma always collects its debt, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Thanks for watching. keep your phone on for the people who matter, and I'll see you in the next one.